When Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in early 2022, the world expected its economy to crumble instantly under the weight of sanctions, isolation, and war expenses, but instead it limped forward through improvisation, rerouting oil to Asia, weaponizing its energy supply, and leaning heavily on its central bank's controls. Yet by late 2025 that illusion of stability has begun to shatter, revealing three terrifying new signs that the Russian war economy may finally be collapsing. The first and most visible is the implosion of its oil and gas revenues. The bloodstream of Putin's state, now drying as export taxes, gas levies, and mineral extraction fees fall more than 20%, causing a 4 trillion ruble deficit long before year-end and forcing Moscow to slash defense budgets while its refineries, crippled by Ukrainian drone attacks, leave entire regions facing fuel shortages so severe that Crimea and southern oblasts ration gasoline to 20 liters per customer, turning the world's second-largest energy exporter into an importer of diesel and petrol from Belarus, a humiliating reversal that exposes the country's dependence on a lifeline it once controlled. At the same time, the second and equally chilling sign emerges in the collapse of Russia's non-energy sectors. Its wartime industrial engine now sputtering as the manufacturing PMI falls below 48, the sharpest contraction since 2022. With service industries plunging into the red and the central bank forced to keep interest rates near 21% just to cage inflation, suffocating private investment, bankrupting small businesses, and pushing unemployment higher while official GDP figures flatten toward zero, what even state-friendly economists call technical stagnation. The short-lived war boom is exhausted, defense factories are at capacity, civilian output is shrinking, and consumption collapses under inflation and scarcity, leaving a vicious loop of declining tax revenue and mounting debt. The third and darkest sign lies in the social and institutional decay rippling through the Russian system, where the regime bleeds reserves to fund its war, empties sovereign funds to pay soldiers and pensions, and raises VAT to 22% just to keep the lights on, while schools, hospitals, and local governments are starved of money, triggering quiet anger in the provinces, disillusion among elites, and unprecedented emigration of skilled Russians who see no future in a militarized, sanctioned, and stagnant state. Demographic decline accelerates as men die at the front or flee mobilization, and within the elite, cracks widen. Oligarchs squabble over shrinking contracts, governors hoard resources, and mysterious deaths multiply among businessmen and officials, each suicide or accident whispered to hide a purge. Meanwhile, inflation erodes salaries, queues return to gas stations, and even Moscow's middle class begins murmuring dissent that secret police can only half contain. The Kremlin responds with tighter censorship, capital controls, and emergency taxes, yet every repressive measure deepens the fear it seeks to suppress, revealing a leadership trapped by its own war, unable to retreat without humiliation and unable to advance without collapse. Analysts warn that if oil prices stay low, sanctions tighten, and Ukraine continues to strike refineries, Russia could soon face either a slow bleed into a militarized depression or a sudden fiscal crash leading to debt default and hyperinflation, scenarios that might shatter not only its economy but also the unity of its ruling clans. Within a few years, the once defiant fortress Russia could fracture into semi-autonomous regions, its influence reduced to bluster and nuclear brinkmanship while ordinary citizens endure shortages, devalued rubles, and decaying infrastructure. This convergence of energy collapse, economic contraction, and social breakdown now paints the picture of a war machine running out of fuel, literally and figuratively, driven by propaganda and fear rather than prosperity, as the Kremlin burns its future to sustain the illusion of strength. And though Putin's government still wields repression, reserves, and allies like China to delay the inevitable, the deeper truth is that the Russian economy has entered a terminal phase of exhaustion where every new missile fired in Ukraine is also a bullet through its own financial heart, every refinery hit a wound it can no longer heal, and every ruble printed a whisper of desperation echoing through the corridors of power that once promised eternity but now tremble under the weight of collapse.